Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mike Glover, Black Rifle Coffee Company. As you know, because you're probably watching this, I do the pro tips on all these things in preparedness, and I didn't just want to focus on the black rifle, the cool guy stuff, even though I think overlanding is cool guy stuff, cool people stuff. I brought in some subject matter experts that I paid attention to before I even got into the field of overlanding. I overlanded all over the world, but I didn't know what that was. I was just driving around, making mistakes with other special operations guys. We didn't have an understanding of this field of expertise and that you could technically get better at it and just get better at living that life. And I started watching these guys' channel, a family of 5 on YouTube. And I was like, man, not only can you do it, it's not that hard, it's fun, and you can do it as a family. Let's hand it over to you guys to introduce yourself and who you are.
Yeah, so I'm Peter Jr. actually, of the Epic Family Road Trip.
And I'm Dan Van Stralen.
And we're a family of 5 who have been traveling in 2 Jeeps. We started out in one JK Jeep, and we're now getting into our 7th year this month, actually, of traveling the world, and especially in North America.
So how old were you guys when you started this venture?
I believe I was 14.
Yeah, and
no, 13 actually.
Yeah, I was 11 years old.
Wow. And so you live for 7 years, you guys have been living out of a vehicle, on and off, traveling all over the place. Do you even have a resident, like an actual home?
We have a bit of a home base. It's actually an island in Ontario. It's all off the grid. It's just a cabin that's on an island in the middle of a lake. And we go there to kind of rest up and then practice more of our bushcrafting skills, go camping and stuff.
That's so cool, man. I like the idea of family preparedness in mind. That's something that we advocate for in teaching, but to see families going out and doing it, we got to get back to that root in the first place. Today on Pro Tips, we're focused on sleeping setups in vehicles. I remember being in Afghanistan on a long-range movement and sleeping under a tarp under a Land Rover in the middle of enemy territory. And I was like, why didn't we get rooftop tents? Why didn't we get mattresses or something as a creature comfort? You guys live this lifestyle, and I see on your Jeep, you have a rooftop tent. Tell us about the rooftop tent, and then why did you go with that setup?
Right, so initially, the way we discovered rooftop tents was we saw another vehicle driving down the road and it had some kind of device on top of it, and we figured out it was a rooftop tent. We had spent some time camping on the ground, and that just seemed like a much better way. You're high up on your vehicle, you're on your vehicle, and you're above where predators or other things can be. It just feels more comfortable. So our first tent was one that folded out over the back of our Jeep, and that's just the way it opened up. This one that we now have is a clamshell design. We can just literally undo 2 latches and it pops up. It's got a little mattress in there, and it's completely waterproof, watertight, and comfortable. Rooftop tents are just a more convenient way to be living with your vehicle while on the road.
But I know there was a difficulty with this tent set up in the elements, and you guys are year-round travelers and overlanders, and it's cold outside right now. It'll be freezing tonight. What are some of the constraints of having a rooftop tent for you guys that you've discovered?
Well, especially when we're heading into colder places, we usually try while we're traveling to stick, kind of like chase summer. But then when we are in like lots of rain or it's been raining for a couple of days, these tents can hold up and they are waterproof. But at a certain point, kind of starts seeping into everything, and you can't keep the water out while climbing in and out. So if it gets cold, we have sleeping bags, but then we also have something called mummy liners. There's this little kind of sheet that you can put over. It gives you a bit more warmth. But if we are in a place where, it's just too cold for camping in the tents, or we're soaking wet, we might head into like a KOA or some sort of actual campground, or maybe a hotel, and kind of dry things out.
The thing about rooftop tents is you can only last so long when you're in the elements. We spent a couple months on Vancouver Island in Canada's winter. It's the warmest spot we could go. So it was great because it was warm enough that we could live in a tent. We had no heating in there, so we'd freeze to death otherwise. But the problem was it rained almost constantly and the sun hardly came up. So for a week, you're fine, you're dry, you're cool. You can kind of keep yourself dry. After a week or more, everything is wet. Like we were sleeping on wet mattresses, our sleeping bags eventually become wet and your pillows become wet. And there's absolutely nothing you can do. Like we tried to heat it with like area heaters, like a propane heater, and it kind of dries out the area. But that's kind of the limit of a rooftop tent, I think, is staying for an extended period of time in any sort of weather. If you're in a lot of snow for a long time, you can only last so long. Rain, heat, anything like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you're going to degrade over time depending on the condition. You guys, I'm curious about why you went with the particular model, CVT. I've seen it all over the place. Like a lot of guys run that, and I noticed that it's kind of like the ruggedized version of that. What are some of the characteristics of this, and why'd you go with this setup?
So going to the clamshell was first and foremost for convenience, because we also started out on the fold-out ones. We had a Tepui CVT, and they're great, but this is just so much quicker to set up and set down, particularly when it's snowing or raining. If it's raining, you don't want to be standing up for hours packing in stuff and blah, blah, blah. With this, you can just close it up. Another thing is it's super rugged, as you said. Everything's aluminum. Once it's closed up, we can put a ton of weight on top of that.
Oh, that's aluminum.
Yeah.
So lightweight.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep, and you can walk all over it. You can do anything to it. And it's pretty well bash proof. You don't have to worry about like a tent cover to protect the canvas from getting wet or something. Once it's clammed shut, nothing can rip that open.
Yeah.
It's sealed shut.
Finally, what is the upgrade of this? Because, you know, we talked about being, I'm old, but I'm also spoiled. Like I feel like I've done my suffering for decades. I have a bad back, at least that's what I tell everybody. I need to have the Thermarest mattress. I need to have a wide open space. And even the heat consideration alone, because I've done a lot of rooftop camping, the breeze that goes through there, you don't have external heat or internal heat to this. What's next for you guys in evolving this platform?
Something we've been looking at a lot is to be able to keep the mobility of a rooftop tent, because that's what I'd say to counter the cons of the weather thing. If you don't like a spot, if it's snowing or raining a lot, you can pack up and leave. You don't have to take in a ton of stuff. You just close up your tent and leave. That's the benefit. So where we're looking to move to is something that allows you to live inside the vehicle and just pop up a tent as well. So what we've been looking at is what's called a JXL. It's like an extension on a Jeep, and I'll use another brand, Ursa Minor. It's like basically a pop-up tent, but it replaces your roof, so it pops up like that.
Oh, so all integrated
inside.
into
it'll
it.
all be internal living space.
So you could hop out of your seat and crawl through the back and never have to really leave.
Right.
Can you heat that tent with the heater in your vehicle?
You probably could, and we've been looking at other ones like, I don't know any brands, I haven't looked into it enough, but kind of what they would use on like a sailboat, like a very small area heater. I've seen EXO, actually, we spent some time in one of their trucks and they had a heater that would run off of propane, kerosene, diesel, and other things. They took it up to Tuktoyaktuk and lived out of it. It was at Tacoma.
Really cool.
And that's something that we're looking at doing, and you can basically plumb that in and heat up the whole vehicle.
Yeah, I'm about that life. There's a balance that you got to strike, right? If you got a full-size truck and then you got this big camper, you're not going to certain areas that you want to get away from people. So striking that balance. And lastly, you guys are doing this all on Jeeps. You got a JL and a JK, and then you got the bikes. Is there a plan to adapt another vehicle, or are we sticking with Jeeps? What do you think?
For now, I think we're going to stick with the vehicles we have.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty well adapted to the Jeep and how it works. We know everything. We've been in a lot of situations with it, so we trust it very much. So being able to make it a more comfortable way to live out of it is kind of more ideal for us.
Yeah, I feel like you use what you got, maximize its potential, and see where it takes you. And then why try to fix something that's not broken? Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. I pretend like I'm an expert because I'm like, yeah, I use this Jeep all the time, and you live it. I mean, you probably have more years living in a tent than 99.9% of the space because you're doing it. I mean, you guys are constantly doing it. So thank you for being on this Pro Tips, and we're gonna have more of them because I want to talk about their bikes too. They do that as well. But how can people find you guys' channel? What's the channel and where does it live?
Our channel is called Epic Family Road Trip on Instagram, YouTube, and I believe Facebook. And that's how you'll find us, just at Epic Family Road Trip.
Yeah, if you're into podcasting, we have them on the Fieldcraft Survival podcast as well, talking about that shared experience, a family of 5 going out and living it and doing it for real. It's such a positive and impactful thing. I love you guys. I love the family. And you guys always have a home at Fieldcraft and Black Rifle Coffee, whatever you guys need from us. We got to get them Black Rifle Coffee for the road. That's something we got to make sure that we take care of you guys with. Thank you so much, guys, for coming out.
Thank you.
And appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Till next time, stay alert, stay alive.